What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? And welcome to the Survivor Now podcast.
Should be like, hey, for the bushes.
And if Abraham can't make it anytime, you got my number. Just call me. I'll come.
See, you're...
First of all, I don't know why Randy tried to set me up like this.
But what Sam did? Holy crap, guys.
And I reckon one day we'll have like a World Australia where they bring like the stars of each kind of thing into a game. Yeah, I know, that'd be epic.
Also, like, I have a smidgen of dignity and integrity, and I'm actually like a really loyal friend.
You're bringing a human element into it rather than just all, you should have done this. At this point, you should have cut that off. But yeah, man, you got no clue. You weren't even there.
I will not be silenced. I will not be silenced.
Dino!
Oh, hey guys!
Hey, congratulations!
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, we have been looking forward to this. We are joined by the newest millionaire, the newest owner of a brand new car, the man who's going on the most amazing honeymoon ever, and the newest sole survivor of South Africa, return of the Outcasts, Dino. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, guys. Oh man, geez, that is a lot. It's still a lot to take in. When you're listing everything that went off, I'm like, damn, all those things happened, man. So yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, Dino, I was on last season of Survivor here in the U.S. I know
I know very well. I remember. I've actually, we've had messages, man. I've been in your DMs already when you were on.
Hey, Dino, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
hey,
so I was in your DMs, bro. You and Sarah. I knew Sarah from before she was even cast. So I was like a big fan, man. I'm super stoked to be sitting here chatting to you, dude.
Man, Dino, thank you. A wonderful season. I enjoyed the way, y'all get the winning blind sides of any version of Survivor and pulling them off. Oh, it was great, man. Now, when you were sitting there with your family, with your friends, what was it feeling?
At Final Tribal Council or watching it back last night?
Final Tribal Council, looking at it last night.
Oh yeah, no. So watching last night, having my friends and family, and I threw a bit of a finale viewing party because we didn't actually get an official event. We were dropped kind of last minute. So Monday morning, this past Monday, we got to work, organized an event. So Thursday we had a nice outcome, about 130 people pulled through, current castaways, alumni. So it was just nice to have the Survivor family together, have my family and friends together, and just watch that all play out. So it was super special, man. To get to enjoy that. My fiance Kirsten was out there with me. My brother was out there with me. So to share that moment in real time was incredible, and it's a memory I will cherish for a lifetime. But then to be able to have my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother-in-law, my business partner, my other friends be able to watch it and actually see it all unfold was like, it's super special, and I'm so grateful.
Dino, talk to me about, everyone's going to be excited about winning the game of Survivor. That's just an awesome thing. Hey, especially like we win anything, we're going to be excited. But talk to me about being a super fan, because, we're all super fans of the show, but I pay attention to all the podcasts you support. I mean, you reach out to everyone. You are always active on social media with the Survivor community. So you are what I count a true super fan of the show. And I know you pay attention to the US season and everything. So what did it mean to you when you saw, we saw in your face what it meant to you, but what was it like in that moment? Something that you love so much winning that.
It's crazy. It meant a lot more than the fandom necessarily, right? It was there's two parts to it. There's the game I fell in love with when I was a kid, that always that saw this game and had this dream to play one day, right? So I don't know, you picking up any background noise at all?
No, we're good.
No, you're good.
Yep.
So when I was a kid, this was the one show, and I was like, oh yeah, if there's one thing I got to do in my life, it would be Survivor. It was the one thing that I always wanted to do, and I struggled with a bit of confidence when I was a child. I had a bit of bullying. So it was like, to build that confidence to eventually apply and keep applying and reapply. to eventually just get cast was like a huge win for me. Just to get on the show the first time around was a huge win for me, being this kid that dreamed it and achieved the dream of winning. To take it one step further and actually win the entire game, and especially having grown closer with the show and closer with the community, and having a real love of the community and for the community. I've made so many good friends through this before I was ever cast and through being cast. To be a part of that and then take down the title of Soul Survivors, it's pretty surreal, man. Like I can't even explain it to you, but I feel like I did it for more than just me. You know, I did it for like the people who struggle with confidence, who you know, maybe had a bit of a low self-esteem, you know, and it's like, no, just persevere. You can do it. If you put your mind to it, you can definitely get there. I did it for like the community. So many fans who actually love the show and what it represents. I'm like, you know, I'm a part of that, and hopefully that those fans see themselves in me, you know, like, yes, we can do it. It's not, you don't have to be this like well-built machine of like this influencer who's just been picked up or recruited or whatever. You don't have to be that type of person to go through it. You can just be like Marianne, man. Like, you can be this fan.
Hey, Marianne is great.
Win it. Absolutely.
Now, but you have to be good at puzzle making. I will throw that out there. You got to be able to make a puzzle from time to time.
on the odd occasion, which funny enough, I mean, 4 out of the 4 immunity challenges that involved the puzzle at the end, I got to that puzzle before the person that ended up beating me on that puzzle. So I'm not a puzzle master.
Oh, we noticed it a little bit, Dino. We were isn't this man supposed to be great? I mean, there was a few you were right there on, though, like right there about to win. Abraham, you had something to add on?
Now, so me and Randy did our own selection. When you go through, you look at the cast and everybody's released. Randy had you at top 3.
Yeah, I saw.
I had you at pre-merge. I was like, I don't really know about this Dino guy. I read your bio information. And now here's the interesting part. I had to go through the same thing, looking at everything on social media about myself and where would I finish at and everything else. And looking at you, I was worried about you. We fell in the fire. I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen to Dino. But I looked at your gameplay. Phil was great. I thought it was great.
I was just with Phil and Steffi now. That's why I was like 2 minutes late. I mean, Phil he's phenomenal, man. What a human being. Like, oh, he's so rad. He's so cool. He's such a great character. He's a great player. And he's a really good friend of mine. And he's just such a genuine, down-to-earth soul. So, yeah, I mean, even in the game, I mean, you saw I put there in my parchment, fan fave Phil, you know, like I was a huge fan of him in the game.
It's so hard. Like, people don't understand that outside of the game, we actually talk and we actually communicate with each other. And that's one of the things I wish that with the show, they would show more of some of the after. Oh, no, we really know each other. We really hang out. And I've had great opportunities myself to hang out with my cast. Out of everybody selected from your original season, if you could have brought back one other player to be on this season, who would have been?
Kieran Naidu.
Yeah.
There you go.
For personal, like I've got like one. I think he was, in my opinion, my humble opinion, he was hands down the best player of our season. It was one of the best to have played in South Africa. One, absolutely, the guy is so well rounded. Oh man, he's phenomenal, and he's a really good friend of mine, and this really nice guy that I back. So I would love to play alongside him. Yes, I've had an opportunity, and he voted me out. Like absolutely, Kieran. But I think looking back on season 8, there's a number of castaways that I would have pegged for this season or returnee season that I'd have full confidence in. You know, like Amy's social game is phenomenal. Anesu's just absolutely next level. Renier as well, also another super fan, strategic, like more like the survivor nerdy type, like maybe that a little bit of what I come across as. He's also like amazing and phenomenal. Carla, pre-merge boots as well. You know, like there's so many people that I look at in our cast and go like, wow, you know, that's something that I think South Africa casting gets right, is they really cast a great pool of players. I'm not saying because I'm there.
They cast the best players, yeah.
I feel really biased here, but I think they really do get it right, and we have a nice depth that comes through.
Well, I was gonna say your season as well, talking about season 8, is because we spoke with Kieran last week, and we're talking to Tyson later about the season and the finale and everything. So we're a big fan of a lot of people from your season. Now, you came into this game, and there was a lot of emotional moments this season. I mean, right down to that last jury speech, and you talked about your struggles in the past. But the one I want to focus on is, you mentioned several times coming into the game saying you didn't even feel like you belonged in the game. And I wanted to get your opinion on your deception coming into the game, your second time playing, because from everything I was seeing, you were one of the favorites from fans. I saw a lot of fans having you top 3. Dino's going to win the season. I mean, you take that with a grain of salt because Chappie's was also a favorite and he went out first. But why were you so, I don't want to say down on yourself, but why were you looking at it like, I don't know if I belong in Survivor?
It's so interesting. I had a lot of support going into season 8, and I was a lot of people's winner picks in season 8, and I kind of I don't want to say crashed and burned, but I kind of crashed and burned. Kind of what happened.
How you feel?
Yeah, I was gonna say Abe can relate. Can relate, man. So it broke a little bit of that confidence because what kept me reapplying for Survivor is I was like, I think I've got these skill sets. I think I've got the right mindset. I understand the game. I've got the 3 pillars. I think like in a decent balance, I can actually play this game and I can do well. And I always believed in. That's why I kept applying. And I was like, yeah, let me keep applying. And then I get on the show and then I kind of feel like I've sold myself short a little bit. Not sold myself short, but I've kind of underperformed. I haven't really reached my full potential, or maybe I'm just not at the level. I had to maybe do some introspection. Go like, maybe you aren't cut out for this game. Sometimes you have to take a step back at something and go like, maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Back so soon as well. It was all very raw, very, very raw. And I think some of the players who returned with me, so Teresa, Pinty, Chappies, people who declined, like Carla, declined an invitation to return because it was still too raw and too fresh.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of opened a couple of old wounds and some doubts, right? So going in the first 5 or 6 days, first 5 days in particular were incredibly tough. I was missing Kirsten immensely, and I was feeling so guilty for leaving her at home again so soon after, for our partners who, pick up the pieces back home while we're away trying to live our dreams, and they've got to deal with the shell of a human being that returns from this game for months afterwards. I mean, Abe, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's difficult after. It's post-game. It's tough, man. So I was sitting with a lot of that, and then at the same time, it's like I always felt like everybody else was more like a real castaway, I'm sitting there, there's a Palesa, there's a Tevin. I've watched all these people play. These are the people I watched. And I was like, I want to be like you one day. There's a Tony, there's a Ante, there's a Steffi, there's a Chappies even who I played with, and I'm like, these are all the real castaways. And I was like, oh, jeez, am I out of my depth here? Am I a little bit? So that self-doubt did start early in the game, but fortunately, giving myself a little bit of time to build relationships, that voice got a little bit quieter and quieter until I could build some confidence, which was a saving grace, really.
Well, Dino, throughout the whole season, we know that we're being filmed 24/7, and we know only a certain amount gets put on TV.
Absolutely.
What's one of the greatest moments that you had on the show that didn't make it on the show that you like? You know what? I want to tell
give
people
us the details, Dino.
Oh man, so there's a couple of moments that happened. I mean, this would be even beyond what's on camera, where after the merge feast, merge reward, where Tajan he'd polished that bowl of bolognese, which was incredible. It looked amazing. I was sitting there salivating. But he managed to smash an entire bottle of wine. Now, the guy was on 0.001% body fat. He was delusional. He's so super fit. And we haven't eaten for days. And the guy smashes a bottle of wine and ends up getting so hammered that he kept entertained for hours. I mean, he's such a lovely, down-to-earth, soft-natured, kind soul. And in his hammered state, he was just so entertaining. He was just like Tage extra, and it was both comical and comic relief in what's tough circumstances, being out there in the state of what would you call it?
Your weather background environment was harsh.
Yeah, absolutely. It's harsh. And it was just such comic relief, and it was just so endearing, and it kind of brought us all together, and it kind of humanized everyone a little bit again. And yeah, it was fully entertaining. It's one of those things we look back on super, super fondly and have a good chuckle about every now and then.
One of my favorite things about this season was these amazing alliances that we got. And I don't know if I want to say alliances, it's more like groups now, especially in modern Survivor, how fluent everything is. But there was 2 groups in particular that I'm like, wow, this group can go all the way to the end. And the first one was the full package. I was like, yes, girls, this is a girls group that can go all the way to the end. And then it was the no BS group. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dino. Did you feel, looking back at it, who do you think was the one that kind of started breaking up, started adding the BS to the no BS group? Because in my eyes, I'm like, Dino, what are you doing? You're breaking this up. But it could have been Felix. I wanted to hear your response to that.
It's so funny, right? So I've watching it back. I see in confessionals, so I don't see them having conversations about, me being on their radar and me being next. But then I see in confessionals that, Phil says like Felix now, Dino next, Felix is saying like, this guy's a, and this is all happening around 6. And it's so interesting because in my mind, I always thought to myself that taking this vehicle of 3 people, 3 strong players to around that area of 6, I put myself in their shoes. I'm going, this is the point that I would take me out. So I started treating them as if they were gunning for me. They weren't actually openly gunning for me at that stage necessarily. Internally, they were gunning for me, but and I was like, I still started treating them like that. And I had these ideas in the back of my mind that started getting some sort of validation through Phil's actions, which turned out to be kind of innocent. The Tajin vote was actually innocent, it turns out that he just kind of flipped his vote. Even the Dante misfire play from back in the day started playing on my mind. I'm like, did he do that on purpose to keep me at the bottom? If he did, it's an amazing play. The whole idol exchange thing of going like, hey, Dino, I'll give you my idol to like, oh, no, I want to hang on to them.
Was that your fault, by the way? I was blaming Tony all season, and then I heard you say that you fumbled it in your last tribal council. Sorry for the side note, but when you were talking about when she passed the idol, I was like, Tony made that super obvious. And you said during the final tribal, you're like, no, I fumbled the bag on that one.
It's a bit of both, dude.
Okay, yeah.
So what happened was she'd kind of bowed to me. I have an idol at the max when we get to the challenge. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So I start like opening my bag because I took my bag to every challenge and I kind of leave it half open as close to their mat as possible as an opportunity for her to slip it in if we walk away, try and create these opportunities. Then we have this hug thing. Dude, it was a total mess. I'm like, grabbing it and then like shoving it in my pants. I'm like, everybody's seeing this right now. You know what? At that point in time, it didn't do too much damage because I needed people to know that I had something. I was so at risk. It didn't matter what it was. I needed people to be aware that I had something up my sleeve and make me a problem for them because Dante and Shane were literally talking about throwing challenges to vote me out. This is now going to make them go like, well, hold on. Maybe we shouldn't be throwing challenges because something could happen to them. So the whole fumbling, it was a bummer, dude. So not smooth, so me, so Tony. But yeah, it is what it is. It kind of worked out.
Now, y'all had some of the greatest blindsides in your season.
Wow, they were. It was insane.
In your opinion, what was the best blindside? Who was blindsided the best where they were like, I'm going to have to talk to you later after this is over. That was a good one.
Shona with the death stare.
That wasn't meant to be a blindside, man. That was meant to be a Dante blindside. The guy was mad. The 2 moves that were absolutely game changing, and I think the one that was the most delicate and difficult to put off. So it was Steffi, and then Meryl. Insane. And the ones that we form part of, and the Meryl blindside was already being set up from the Steffi move. We always knew that we were going to go from Steffi to Meryl. So in our conversations with Meryl setting up the Steffi blindside, which was hours and hours of talking from me, from Phil, building this relationship, not being the ones to expose because we knew that Felix had the relationship with her, not being the ones to expose that she was at risk from her alliance, but saying like, listen, your boy Felix has got you, he's going to chat to you. We really set the relationship and built it then. Then we pull off the blind side. We've protected her. We've saved her against Steffi. Now we've got to make her feel even more comfortable to ensure that she doesn't play her tribal council pass. And then further, if she can play it for somebody else. And I kind of planted the idea in her head, knowing that Marion came back from the outpost. She had told me that she left a clue for an idol there. So I knew an idol was out there and I knew she was genuine. But I just started saying to Marion, I'm like, to Meryl, I started saying, Meryl, you know, like, nobody comes back from outpost with nothing. I don't know your whole no vote thing and, you know, 50-50 idol because it started coming to light. I'm like, what if she picked up an extra vote? And we started pitching this idea of, we got like, Meryl, you can't leave us hanging at tribal. It's 4-4. If you go, it's 4-3. We lose one of our numbers. Where does that leave you, you know? And what if Marion has this extra vote that she plays? Then it's 5-4. It doesn't matter if we're there. And then talking about going to rocks, Marion's got immunity. If you then go to rocks, they've got the mathematical advantage. It was all those conversations that spent hours and hours and hours to try and get her to a point where she generated this idea for herself, this mega play, and we gave her the confidence to do so. And the linchpin in that, the absolute linchpin, was Felix in that relationship. So that to me was like the most exciting, riveting, technical, delicate move of the game for us, for our perspective. And wow, I hope it was appreciated.
You broke my heart. I was like, how can you do this to Mama Meryl? I was like, the sweetest soul, one of the sweetest souls I've ever seen play the game. And I was just like, oh, what a great move. But like, oh, it's vicious. This is vicious to watch. Because, we can see you guys planning this, and she is so convinced that, you guys are planning it for her. And so it was hard to watch, but I definitely agree. I think that's one of the best blindsides.
It was the most multi-tiered blindside, because not only did you blind somebody, you got them to use one of their actual rewards to help someone else out. And then she also gave Tajan a reward for a vote earlier. And then you had to convince her that she was safe. It was the most multi-level blindside. Hey, great job. I mean, and that's the game of Survivor. That's actually the game of Survivor that you played, and her exit was just graceful. You got
what? Credit to her game as well, because it shows you the level of respect, and to most of the people that are blindsided, I think we had some really, really intelligent, sharp, savvy players on the season, so moves had to be so well executed. But credit to Meryl as well, that it takes a move like that. It takes so many moving parts and such delicate maneuvering to be able to take a player like her out, because she's a genuine threat to win, because she's a phenomenal player. She's a great strategist, great socially. She gets to the end, she's going to be so tough to beat, So even though the move, people are saying, oh, how could she do that? How could she do that? I totally understand how and why she could do that. It's more, I would say it's more reflective of how good a player she is, that it took so many of us to be able to take her down.
It was a team effort.
Absolutely. It was absolutely.
So, Dino, I have a two-part question for you. So, first off, it's kind of opposite ends of the spectrum here. So, first, is there a certain point in the game where you said, man, this was this close to happening, and if it went this direction, I would not be sitting here right now as the winner, whether that is something to do with you almost getting voted out, or one of your closest allies maybe was in trouble at the time? And then the second part of that question is, do you have a moment that you believe that was my winning moment, whether that's a move or something you said in your speech? Is there a moment that you said, I think I might be winning this thing?
Interesting questions, man. So I'm going to answer the second question first, right?
That's fine.
So the moment, it wasn't my moment, and we all had our parts to play in the Steffi move, but it was really Felix that drove it and sold the idea, and credit to him, like, it was fantastic. But that Steffi vote was the moment that I was elevated into a position where I could start controlling my own destiny, right? I suppose this is going to be a blend of both questions now.
Hey, I caught you off guard, so you're all good, man.
No, it's all good. After the failed Dante blindside, I had a good relationship with Marion and Meryl, and they were willing to work with me. Now I've just gone against them. I've deteriorated that relationship, right? I start feeling like, man, now I've really bottled it. Now I'm like living on borrowed time. And I just go into complete submissive mode, where I just ensure that all they know is that I'm doing their bidding. I will put my vote wherever they tell me to vote, and I'm solid for them, and I'm a huge asset. And I will have no gameplay, no impact on strategy. That was my strategy. It was so hard. It's almost what I call like playing boring Survivor. But I had to go in self-preservation mode and just survive vote by vote, and be totally okay with being given the name at the last minute, not being involved in the technical talks, and being like, hey, thank you. You're keeping me safe. That's all that matters. When on the inside, I'm like, I need to try and win this game. To win this game, you need to be playing this game. You can't just be dragged along. But at that point that the Steffi vote happened, there was a huge power shift. Now, I'm not saying it shifted into my favor solely. It shifted from one alliance, full package, to no BS. And I had more influence on there. So that's when I started seeing a real path to the end, and going like, now I can really see how I can dictate my own destiny per se. there's a couple of factors to consider, but now it's starting to look achievable.
I know looking at the game, man, and it's like I'm not going back and look at my own season. I did the one time and that was it. What is one thing, and they've asked you before, what did you take away from the other players from the game? Because when I looked at the start of the season one, great season in the sense that you brought back people that didn't have an opportunity to play deep into the game. I kind of wish they'd do it over here in the U.S. and I go back. But coming back with a group of people that really started on day 10 versus day 1 because you played the game before, you had previous relationships. What is something that you took away from some of those players as you won? Now you're the sole survivor and you're looking back on it, you got a little more time to process.
Look, the thing we take away from the game is we've got some incredible friendships, right? So I'm grateful to take away the actual friendships. I'm blown away by how close everyone is, or for the most part. I mean, you've got the groups within the groups, but it's such a mature group. The thing that I take away from the group as a whole in terms of this season is something that was quite a running theme throughout. I touched on it in one of the tribals earlier on, where I said, like, you can play hard, you can make moves, but you don't have to be malicious, right? And there was a recurring theme, not because of that, but because it was spoken, between castaways of a bit of humanity and a bit of empathy. Play hard. We're competitors here, and then that's it. It doesn't have to be personal. And that theme ran all the way through. And you saw the way the jury even asked the questions. These are people whose hearts have been broken. Their dreams have been dashed. They've come this close or this close, this close. They've been lied to. They've been backstabbed, and you've been a part of that. Yet, and we know bitter juries exist. Bitter juries are a thing.
Oh, we were talking about them before you joined us, about like petty juries and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yet these people sat on the jury, didn't speak at us. It wasn't an opportunity for them to just offload and dump on us. They gave Shane and I a fair chance. They asked us hard questions. They were hard, but they were totally fair. They were never aggressive. It was never personal. It was inquiring. And I really felt that they took the time to listen, to hear us both out. And that takes exceptional maturity and humility. Absolutely. So I take huge lessons away from them for that.
We're probably going to have to wrap up here in a couple minutes. I don't know. I was messaging Safiso to see what your time schedule is looking like, because I know you are a super busy guy. Abraham, did you have another question you wanted to ask?
One thing I really enjoyed about the conclusion of your season was bringing back the entire cast and letting them be a part of the finale. We didn't get that opportunity coming out of Fiji. We was doing the pandemic, and there were some things going on behind the scenes. But what was the time limit between you sitting there, they're getting ready to vote for who's going to be sole survivor, and then bringing back the cast? Was that all in one shoot, or did they have to go a day?
So reunion would have been day 40. Reunion was day 40. Sure, we did final tribal council. As far as I understand, pre-mergers arrived on the day of final tribal council. They arrived at the location. Because we don't get pre-jury trips, in all our seasons. If you go pre-merge, you go home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody went home, and then they were flown in specifically for reunion. They arrived the day before. I mean, I ended up only getting in after final tribal council, after all the craziness. I got in, so hotel room to my fiance and my brother at like 3:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. Was up at 8. It was a long day of all sorts of things, and then it was reunion that evening. So I had hardly any time to process the game, process what had happened. I was still in feral survival mode going into that. I was a bit of a mess. I was like ready to still play this game, and I played this thing. So it was very condensed. But I'm so glad that they did bring everybody back for reunion. We were super bummed to not be getting a live finale, and I think you guys feel it as well. The live finale is just next level. But they got the next best thing, which was everybody together for that night.
I'm gonna DM you our finale that we put together for ourselves as well. And I'm with you. I really wanted to come back, and I think it's a healing process in that you bring everybody back, because people don't really. Yeah, it's closure, and people don't really know what goes on in those missing scenes. We're, like I said, we're filmed day and night, and there's a lot of stuff that they don't see. I think Shane was very eloquent in putting that some of the stuff that he got out of it with stuff that never made it to the actual screen, which was great.
Dino, I wanted to ask about that final tribal council. They kept, Shane's topic was kind of like, what was the game that you played? And everyone kept saying, you were great, super polite around camp. And it was just kind of the contrast of like how he played last time and how he played this time. With you, I felt like it was more about how you played with your heart and your emotion, and whether that kind of rubbed people the wrong way in certain instances. Tajan's obviously the first one that comes to mind with that reward challenge. So did you feel, trying to see how I want to phrase this, did you feel it was unfair in any way with how they were coming at you about how you played with your heart and your emotions and stuff? Because even Steffi said you kind of played that, innocent Dino at the time. Or did that really hit home? And did you feel like it was fair what they were asking you there?
No, absolutely. I mean, nothing was unfair whatsoever. I don't feel slighted or that they were unfair in any way. It's so interesting. So that tribal council, I mean, final tribals are generally very, very long. I think that one was probably about 3 hours long. And there was a lot of gameplay talk as well. There was a lot of questions on gameplay, on moves. And I think what actually happened in terms of what made it to air, I think there was this huge contrast in gameplay and moves that from a storytelling point of view, where the competition lay between me and Shane was the personable level. And that's why that's the story that made it to air. And it was so interesting because I even said it at one point in Tribal. It didn't make it to air, but I said it. I was like, geez, who would think that me, the pre-merge boots, is like a bit like fumbling and whatever, and super chill. Mona is the nice guy who's got the nice guy like tag, is sitting next to Shane, the most notorious villain in society.
Yeah, you did say that.
Empathetic one, and I'm being called ruthless. I was like, who
Well, I was just sitting there. I was like, Dino has played. I felt like it was harsh. Like I was sitting there. I'm like, guys, like Dino's played an incredible game. And like, I'm always on the mindset, it's Survivor. You're going to have to lie. You can't play like an honest, complete game. I mean, maybe I'm not thinking of someone, but if you guys know anyone, let me know. You got to lie at some point and deceive at some point. So I just thought it was a little harsh. So I wanted to see how you perceived it there during that last tribal.
I think what they were trying to suss out was just understand what was me and what was gameplay, right? And because there's like, they merge and they kind of like blend and it creates a gray area. And Tej as well, because I am genuinely an empathetic guy and I did get to know people and I built very deep bonds with people, and then you backstab, and then it creates questions in people's minds. It's like, okay, it's fine. We don't mind what it is. We just need to know, like, what was gameplay? Where does it end? Was this all just a strategy? And I kind of had to unpack it for them that, yes, this is who I am. These relationships are real. However, the game was at the forefront of my mind. So yes, I did use these things, and we all use the tools in our toolkit to a large degree, and it gets harder as you go along. But it was about being accountable to those moves and saying yes, because it was actually ruthless, looking friends in the eye and going, lying. I mean, Felix, at that point, we call it finessing. We were saying we'd finesse this one and finesse that one when you're kind of trying to lure them in, like we did with the Meryl and the Steffi moves. And eventually Phil and I have to finesse one of our own in Felix, as we've watched everybody finesse each other kind of thing. And that's incredibly hard. And it's like, man, like, how can you do that? And that's where that ruthlessness comes in. So I get it. And I do understand why they viewed it that way. And I don't blame it. But I think I did enough to try and pack it for them to a level that they could respect and accept.
Now, here's one, because like we got Jeff Probst and we're sitting at Tribal. Was there any time when Nico was at Tribal, because their job is to get something extra out of us or get some type of interaction for us? And I understand why. But there was a couple of times I probably would have just hit Jeff with an apple, just would have threw an apple, hit him in the eye, be like, stop, Jeff. Was there any time where y'all was like, Nico, come on now?
I think because I'm quite forthcoming, and people try to protect the game, they try to give non-answers, and then like I think Jeff is well known to, like, if you give him a non-answer, you'll never give him a non-answer. Nico does dig it out of you eventually. So because I'm quite forthcoming in general, I don't think he had to try and really draw anything out of me. I often speak before I think, so I'm like one of the easier people for him to be able to. Yeah, 100%. Well, I say 100% because Nick, one of Felix's favorite phrases was 100%. Yep. You're like, oh yeah, 100% Nico. And Nico's like, no, 100%. Oh, I don't know what's going on. And Phil even pretending not to. Phil was brilliant at non-answers, and it would frustrate Nico. So I think other players might have been a bit frustrated with him, like trying to draw things out. But I'm just like, yeah, I'm happy to talk, man. Let's chat. I'm here at Tribal Council. Let's make the most of this.
I saw my person I got voted for the most information oversharing was Tajan. he would just share information. When he brought that stick of power to the challenge, I was like, what is he doing? In the game of Survivor,
the man was starving. That's what the man was doing.
He was absolutely hilarious. But here's the funny thing about Tej, and he got ripped on in the game because he became a bit of a scapegoat and an easy way to shift attention to. But he had a good read on the game. Actually, if you watch Tajan's game back and you look at the reads, take some of the craziness, the perceived craziness, let's put it that way, perceived craziness out of it. Take some of the way he approached things out of it, and just look at what his reads were. They were highly accurate. And I said this in the game, even to Phil. I was like, Tajan's not wrong. Tajan's right. Yeah, Tajan's right there. It was just maybe his approach. So, I mean, he was a phenomenal character. He made great TV, and maybe if he hadn't worn his heart in his sleeve or spoken his mind as much, he might have survived a little longer. But I mean, geez, he had an incredible read on the game.
Go ahead, Abraham.
He was only 1 or 2 wins from changing the whole direction of the game. Had he won some of those challenges that he came in on second, that would have changed the whole dynamics of the game, because now he wasn't on the chopping block.
No, absolutely. And he was capable of doing it. Absolutely. He was highly capable of those wins, and we were well aware of that.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Dino. This might be a little unfair. Before I ask our famous last question that we ask everyone, you've played 2 seasons now. Was this more competitive than the last season you played?
Personally or overall?
You can look at it however you want to. Yeah.
So for me, yes, because I was there a little bit longer.
That's right.
I wasn't as competitive in the last one. So yeah, for me, it was a bit more competitive. I had a bit more chance to be competitive as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we had phenomenal players in season 8.
In both seasons, yeah.
We really had great players, man. Great socially, great in many ways. But I think this season was more competitive in the sense that people came with experience. Everybody comes with experience, so it kind of works in everyone's favor. But people knew the game and people knew each other, so there was far less to hide behind, and that made it far more technical and I'd say competitive in a sense.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you in a spot where you're like gonna make anybody mad from your season, but I'm like, I had to know between the 2 seasons now. And then the last question. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Before we get to the last question, hold on. Let's go back to what was your reaction when you got the phone call that you'd be going back as one of another this season?
Dude, man, I've actually recorded that journey the day I got the phone call, going for medicals, day before airport, going to the airport, hotel. I had my GoPro. Day of marooning, filming before going to marooning. I've recorded all of that entire journey, because as a fan, I always found that interesting, and I thought maybe fans would like to see that at some point. So I'm going to put that footage together at some point. But man, that day was crazy. We'd received an NDA early in the week, and I was like, "Ooh, something's up. I'm being considered for this." Like, much to my surprise, I'm being considered. And then I get the phone call from Leroux, and I'm thinking, okay, cool. He's going to ask me for an interview, and he says, "No, you're on." I'm like, "What? On a short list?" No, you're on. On season 9, what? On season 9 panel interviews. Like, no, you are going. Like, we are leaving. I'm like, no way, dude. I was blown away. Like, kid on Christmas morning. It was like I got the call for the first time. You remember that moment. I'm sure it stays with you when you got the call. It was exactly the same. It just felt so good.
I got the call, and I was sitting here, and I let it go to voicemail. And I got a text from Jesse, who was our person. And Jesse was like, "Hey, I'm from Survivor. Keep this quiet. I want to talk to you about the show." And I was like, not the Survivor, not the game of Survivor. Maybe this is something else like insurance or something. And I called him back, and sure enough, and I was like, I finally made it. I felt like I had won that. I was like, I finally made it.
You do, but that is, you get to go and live your dream, and that is when you win. Absolutely.
Still waiting on my call. I'll tell you that right now. But maybe it'll be like an international season, because now we're covering them as well. So maybe I've got,
But Dino, I did like what you did. I like the fact that you captured that whole, because I was like, I flew out to LA. I didn't capture any of that. I was kind of like just going along. And I wish I'd have captured that because there was something years from now when you look back on it, you'd be like, this is a great journey, great adventure. Hey, congratulations. I know Randy's got the last question. Congratulations on winning Return of the Outcasts, South Africa. It was a pleasure looking at you, watching you develop your game and everything.
Thank you so much. And before you get to the last question, Randy,
I'm all good. It's like I'm sure everyone's like, dang, why is Randy trying to wrap this up? I just have no idea how long we have you for. If I knew like an hour, I would have kept it going.
I do have to run, unfortunately, but before we do that, Abraham, I just want to say, dude, on a personal level, I have followed and I've seen that even after you got booted first boot, you've stayed close to the community, you've covered, you've expressed love for the show. You remind me very much of Paul Smulder, season 7, who was second boot there. We've become close friends as well, and he's always been like such a great ambassador for the show. And I'm so glad to see players who, like myself, pre-merge boot, we kind of fall a bit short, but we stay close and we still have this love for the game, regardless of our experience. So I just want to say, like, from a fan, as a player, as a fan, as a member of the community, I really appreciate that you still get involved, dude. Like, and you're still here for the show, regardless of being a first boot. I think that's hugely admirable, man. So I just wanted to let you know that personally.
Hey, thanks, Dino. And first of all, thanks. I don't have anything else to say about that. Hey, that's great, man. From somebody from South Africa and on being on Survivor and knowing what we go through for this process and the emotional side of it and everything else, man, I really do appreciate that. I've had a great time being a part of the community.
The last question, Dino, I feel like this is, I know you got to run here, but I know this is probably going to be a fast response. So the last question that I have is, would you play again for a third time?
Yes. Yes.
I told you he was going to say yes.
I already knew he was going to say, well, Dino.
The stars would have to align and I'd probably be first boot, but I don't care. If somebody, if they feel that, there's a need for me to be there or a reason for me to be there or whatever the case, I could not say no to the opportunity.
Well, Dino, we'll let you go, but huge congratulations, man. The winner of Survivor South Africa, Return of the Outcasts. And I feel like this won't be the last time we speak with you. You have an open invitation to the show. If you ever want to come on and chat any of the seasons, feel free to come on and chat.
He's coming up, so you let me know.
Will do. Have a great day, Dino.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great
good
one.
talking to you, Dino.